my voice, for me personally, is more important than my knee.
LeBron James today on the national anthem protest as sports and politics collide again tonight. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writing this: the politicalization of everything. Feels like we're living in a world like that. And they say this: the politicalization of the National Football League and the national anthem, the divided states of America are exhibiting a very unhealthy level of polarization and mistrust. It goes on, American democracy was healthier when politics was at the ballpark was limited to fans booing politicians who threw out the first ball, almost as a bipartisan obligation. And finally, the losers are the millions of Americans who would rather cheer for their teams on Sunday as a respite from work and the other divisions of American life. Here now, Karl Rove, former senior advisor to President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Karl, good evening to you.
Good evening, Martha.
How do you think about how the president handled this?
Well, first, let me start by saying there's a natural instinct in the heart of every American when our flag comes rolling by or we hear the first notes of the Star-Spangled Banner to rise and salute. And I think if you walk down the street and ask people, do you rise when the flag comes? Do you rise when the anthem is played? That 8 or 9 out of every 10 Americans you ran into on a street corner would say, by gosh, of course I do. But I think the president mishandled this. I was struck by his comments in the speech at the United Nations. Really touched what it is to be an American and to have pride in our country. He had a wonderful line in there. He said, "We aspire to the approval of history." What if the president, rather than calling the players sons of bitches and saying they should have been fired, if he wanted to talk about this, what if he was an aspirational figure who said, look, I understand some people are dropping to their knee, and they have a right under our First Amendment to do so. But you know what? When they do so, they ought to remember that when we salute the flag, we're saluting the generations who have come before us, some of whom served in uniforms, many of whom have in their lives endeavored to make our country better. And we do, when we salute the flag, we do so not because America is perfect, but because America is constantly striving to aspire to the approval of history. We want our country to be better, and that's what we do. We recognize the great efforts made by those that came before us, and we make a commitment to make our country even better in the future. That's why I hope every American will stand and salute our flag.
Well, that would have been
understand
nice.
You have a right not to do it.
That's not what he said. You know, and you quote him from the UN speech, which reminds me of, you know, the discussions that we've had here on the story over the past few weeks, which is that the president had put together several weeks of really strong performances, for lack of a better word, and action.
And look,
and
he
you know,
had a
it's
great
inevitable.
week
We
last
see it over and over again.
Yeah.
That when that happens, you know, it's almost like he likes to, you know, kind of throw a spicy one out there and see if he can get some controversy going again. Do you think that's calculated? Is it because the health care vote just went down and he doesn't want the focus on that, or do you think it's just instinctual? I mean, it's hard to say.
I think it's impulse. I was watching the speech on Friday night, and you could just see the crowd. He'd say something, the crowd would cheer. He'd say something even more incendiary, the crowd would cheer even stronger. I mean, look, there were a lot of people in that crowd that when he said those words, they screamed at the top of their lungs. Now, I suspect a couple of them later on thought, you know what, maybe he didn't need to swear at him like that. But they were standing for the principle of respecting the flag. But no, I think this is all impulse. And look, he had a spectacular week last week. That speech at the UN, and more importantly, the patient diplomacy of the Trump administration has brought about a significant change in the North Korea situation by forcing the Chinese to step forward and take action. This has been something that American presidents have been working for decades, and he achieved it last week. And rather than us talking about what he has done there to make our country safer and to move the process of peace forward, we're talking about the NFL and 200 NFL players taking the knee.
Yeah, but you know what? Chris Ruddy says, his friend, this is a win. This is a win for the president. In fact, you see ratings going down. You see that players now are coming forward, like Ben Roethlisberger and Villanueva, and saying, we agree. We want to stand for the national anthem.
Villanueva came forward this afternoon and said, I'm now in angst. I was a hot dog. I shouldn't have gone out there. I mean, first of all, look, this is a win with the, quote, base. But the president is not the president of the base. He's the president of the country. And he had a chance to win this argument and put the people who are dropping to the knee on the defensive. If there were 6 people who last week dropped to their knee, if the president handled this right, this thing would be 5 people this week and 4 people next week. And particularly if he had done so in an aspirational way, that's what the president can do. Any president could do that if they put their heart to it.
Karl Rove, thank you. Good to see you as always.